Wild horses. Get you in the mood a little bit for talking about horses. Because the domestication of horses left such a big mark across Eurasia, and we're going to start looking at that now. So we looked at the earliest evidence for the origin of agriculture. We looked at those big agriculture societies that had the really big megalithic monuments like Stonehenge, for example. We looked at that, and now I'm going to draw your attention over here to what's called the steppes. Steppes, the steppes of Eurasia. This is a really interesting ecology because it's pretty dry and it's pretty high in elevation, and there were lots of wild horses living there. And remember, roughly around 6,000 years ago, horses started to be domesticated. And in this region, that domestication started, we think, somewhere around 5,500 years ago, is the archaeological evidence. So, this is a wild horse to give you a sense of what those animals look like. The earliest evidence, archaeological evidence, comes from sites in Kazakhstan, so in this region here. So horse domestication, many people still today very reliant on horses. This is a pastoralist group of people. Those cultures that rely on this kind of animal domestication, they move around so that the animals have different places to eat, because as they will graze in one area, they need to move to another one. And especially this would be the case in the steppes where there's not a lot of water. And so the people that are associated with horse domestication were nomadic people that moved around in order to provide for their horses and to take care of them. And everything in these pastoralist societies, everything revolves around the animals. It's a very close relationship. People tend to live in very close proximity, which has a lot of implications for human health that we will talk about much later in the semester. But for now, let's think about how they were using those animals as mechanisms for transportation and also for food. So of course you can drink their milk, you could eat them, but one of the things that people were really doing with horses is using them for transportation. So to ride them, and the earliest evidence we have for people who really brought this close proximity, this very meaningful relationship with horses, were known as the Scythians. They would bury their dead with many, many horses. And so here's an example of one of these archaeology sites showing just the number of horses that these people had with them, and would even take with them into the afterlife. Of course, wagons are essential too. You can ride horses, you can pack things on top of horses, but once they figured out how to build wagons, that was a game changer, because then you can put a whole lot more stuff in a wagon and have the horses pull it. So Scythians were not the ones that came up with this idea of wagons. That actually was a group called the Mycop. So there were lots of different cultural groups very active in the start of domestication of horses and getting that technology off the ground. You looked at this Klein in the last video, and I want to draw your attention to the dead center of the image. Do you see a group called the Yumnaya? Now, let me see if I can highlight that with my cursor. It doesn't show very well because the cursor's white, but hopefully you can see it right there in the middle. I want to draw your attention to the Yumnaya, because while horses changed everything, it was really the Yumnaya that carried that changing everything to a really broad swath across Eurasia. We'll talk about them next. A little more song.